Our next part of the gathering. By the way, I want to thank Panera for the great food. And Terry, thanks for contacting them. Panera has come across with some great coffee and pastries for all of our folks who showed up today to watch this forum. Our next part of the forum is about the school committee. We have 5 eager candidates for 2 seats. We did the usual card game, and the order is Randy, George, Deborah, Katie, and Joe. No opening statements, so the first question will go to Randy, and this is it. Do you think the current school committee has adequately addressed the teachers' contracts? What would you have done differently if you were in their shoes?
Personally, I don't think it actually has been done because it's not settled yet. I wish it was being able to settle. I wish I was able to in that room and make sure they are paid the wages they're supposed to be paid. Make sure the steps are the way they're supposed to be. The 24% pay raise that everyone has heard that being thrown out there and talked about, if it actually is a real 24% pay raise, I would be on the side of the school committee and not vote for that. Because 24% in 3 years, you know, I don't believe that that would be accurate. You know, that would be a little bit over the top for anybody because no one gets 24% pay raise in 3 years. On the other hand, I don't believe the teachers are asking for that. I spoke to George. George is going to sit down with me and actually talk about that, to see what is really going on. He's actually on the committee, and he's actually in the negotiations with them. I believe everyone on the school committee should be sitting down with the teachers and having it more rather that everyone on the school committee is able to sit down with them and get that contract done. I mean, they've been trying to get it done. The school committee has been trying to get it done. I think it should have been done. I think we really need to pay these teachers what they should be paid, looking at all the other towns around us, making sure that the steps are there, make sure everything is going along lines as it should get settled. You know, I would be in there, I would try to get in there, I would stay there as long as we can to get it done, you know, what's best for the, because we need to do what's best for the kids, and getting this contract settled is what's best for our kids. I have 2 kids in the school, and I want that settled.
George?
Very good, Mark. Thank you. First off, let me say this. We have made numerous offers regarding the contract to the teachers union. It is my personal opinion that the teachers themselves are not the people that are at fault for rejecting any of the offers. What I believe firmly is that the MTA representative is leading our teachers down the primrose path where they shouldn't be. We have made offers to them to sit down and review this thing, this contract, the salary negotiations and everything else as individuals. Joyce and I were the negotiating committee, and we offered the school teachers the opportunity to sit down with 2 representatives. Let's iron out the differences between the 4 of us and then present it to everybody else. The school committee in itself is informed during an executive session as to what's going on with the contract negotiations. Everything that we have done is given to every member of the committee. It's nothing being done that they do not know about. I personally have reworked the numbers to give the teachers what they were asking for. That number was rejected. When I asked the teachers union or the MTA representative for what they wanted to come up with, the numbers they went back at us were just back to the original contract. And it just doesn't work. We are trying very hard to get this thing settled, and hopefully we will. Thank you.
Deb?
The school committee has settled 5 of our 6 union contracts, and we are offering the teachers union the exact same conditions that we've offered every other union. About a year ago, the school committee and the Board of Selectmen sat down together and looked at the long-term health of the town. The school committee is the taxpayer's representative. So we have to balance what our students need, what our teachers need, and what the taxpayers need. And doing all of that is very difficult and very time-consuming. The offers that the school committee has made the teachers are generous. No teacher will be getting any pay cut, will be making any less money than they are making now. All of them will be making more, and some substantially more. I'm certainly hoping that we will be able to settle soon. We have engaged a private mediator, and you know, there is hope that that will help. But it is a balance between the taxpayers, the teachers, and the students. The union, the MTA rep has in fact asked for a 24% salary increase for a large majority of the teachers, and we simply cannot afford that.
I believe that if I were in the school committee, I would strongly try to settle the teacher's contract for the fact that it's our children that are losing the year, with the teachers unhappy, unstable of the classrooms. I believe that they're being misinformed for the 24%. I think that if they got a fair contract, the same steps that they always had for the past 40 years, with cost of living increase, I believe that this contract would be settled and we could move forward to a positive school year.
Joe?
My name is Joe Soers. I personally believe that it's a trust issue. I don't believe that the teachers believe in the school committee and Dr. Rizzi. There was a survey that was taken by 200 teachers, and on the survey, they have absolutely no trust in Dr. Rizzi or the school committee. So given that particular item, if you don't have any trust in the people you're trying to negotiate with, then it's going to be a long, long time before you come to any just conclusions. Now, there was $780,000 that Dr. Rizzi gave back to the FinCom. And they basically, from what I heard from going to the school committee meetings, was that this money couldn't be used because it was for special ed. I am a town meeting member. I vote on the school committee. I vote on the budget of the school committee. I vote on the bottom line only. I do not vote on how the money is transferred inside that budget. They can do anything they want with that budget. So I think that's something that needs to be said and something that needs to be understood. Thank you.
Yes, rebuttal certainly, you have 30 seconds.
So first off, the school committee did not give money back to FinCom. The money went back to the town coffers. And a large amount of the money was for our special education contingency. That was several $100,000. And what happens now is that the town and the town meeting members as a whole can decide where that money should go, not just the school committee.
Randy?
Going on what Joe said about the trust, I think part of the trust also right now what's going on is with the teachers still abiding by last contract. And right now with the school committee and Dr. Rizzi holding that money and not going by what their last contract is, it's kind of tough for them, the teachers, to trust the school committee when they're holding that money and when they're going by that last contract. And basically the school committee and everyone else is kind of saying, oh, well, you can go by it, but we're not going to pay attention to it. And they didn't give any of the increases that they were supposed to, so there is no more trust. It's very hard to do.
Okay, does anybody else have a comment, rebuttal?
Just one thing, Mark, if I may. Just in today's newspaper, the town of Norwood is talking about a $2.5 million increase, a part of which is involving about $1.2 million for 9 out-of-district special education placements. Very expensive. And our contingency that was returned to the town was part of the money on these contingencies. And also, the prior speaker, Soros, did not answer the question about the contracts. I wish I I'd like to hear his answer about the contracts.
Thank you, George. I believe basically that I did answer the question.
Here,
I said-
Microphone.
I believe I did answer the question. Can you hear me now? I believe I did answer the question now, as far as the contracts are concerned, that the teachers do not have any faith in the school committee and in Dr. Rizzi. They, and I think that's probably the biggest portion of why they can't come to an agreement on this particular issue. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to say that? Okay. Next question. This one goes to George first. The Gibbons School was downgraded, and the West School has had a major exodus of teachers. What would you do to address these situations in our elementary schools?
Repeat that, please, Mark. Gibbons, you said downgraded.
The Gibbons School was downgraded, and the West School has had a major exodus of teachers. What would you do to address these situations in our elementary schools?
In my opinion, the West School situation, we can take that part first. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, quite a number of teachers, A, had left, A, because of retirements, and B, because some of the contracts were not renewed, okay? And if that be the case, we can read the numbers any way we'd like. I think we lost maybe 40-some-odd teachers, of which 5 or 6 or more retirements could have been possibly out of that school. I don't remember the exact number. The Gibbons downgrade is because we included everybody. When you say downgrade, what it was is a result of the MCAS test that was taken in the school. And depending on the number of students, whether they are on the special ed side or whatever, everybody takes the test. So when the results came out, some of the results were not as high as they had been previously, therefore the downgrade. And personally, I think the emphasis has to be on making sure that all the kids are given the opportunity to take the test and work with those that need the special attention that we offer to the kids in the schools. And I think that must change that situation.
Thank you. Deb?
This town has had a long commitment to special education. The Gibbons houses our highest, a program that has our highest need students. And if that means that sometimes our MCAS scores take a hit, so be it. Gibbons went from a level 2 to a level 3 only because of a subgroup. And in fact, that's what it says on the Department of Education website. As a whole, Gibbons School is doing very well. And we've used this opportunity to do a top-to-bottom restructuring and looking at every program at the Gibbons. The Gibbons, in fact, will come out to be a far better school by the end of it. As far as the West School goes, the West School moved up from a level 3 to a level 2 school. And the principal was hired to reorganize the school, and she in fact reorganized the staff and made a lot of changes as she saw fit, and in fact those changes have proved to be very positive changes based on the growth at the West School. So those are things that I absolutely support.
Katie?
The West School, I'm not sure. All I know is that 43 teachers left the Stoughton school system last year. 2 have left since December. That it comes back to we need to settle the teacher's contract. When you settle the teacher's contract, you'll have happy teachers and you'll have happy students, and that is what our common goal has to be, to make sure that our students are getting what they need and deserve to succeed. And
My name is Joe Soers. The Gibbons level is level 3. Okay, and the West School is 15% below the bottom of the grammar schools. Again, the teacher survey states that the teachers themselves have no confidence in Dr. Rizzi and in the school committee, and I believe that via the school committee, Dr. Rizzi must perform her duties to bring these schools up to where they should be. We spend a lot of money in Stoughton Heights, in the Stoughton school system. We should get something more than our money because our school system is basically in the middle. We have some higher, some a little lower, and we're only basically in the middle. Even the SAT scores by the high school are below average. So, I think Katie was right in stating that the teachers don't trust the school committee. And I think she was right in stating that there is no confidence in the school committee. And thank you.
Anybody have a rebuttal? Okay, Randy, go ahead. Oh yeah, you got to answer the question first.
All right. In regards to the West School, what I would do is I'd poll the teachers that are leaving and find out why they are resigning and leaving there, why there's a lot of them going out the door. Find out what they're unhappy about, the specific ones that are leaving. If it's just the contract, that's one thing. If it's the principal and what she's doing, you need to know what the problem is and why there's a ton of them leaving. As far as the Gibbons School, I went there when it was probably one of the best elementary schools in the state. Okay, so it hurts me on a personal level to see where it's gone down to. My kids are going there. My daughter went through there. My son's in 4th grade there now. I believe it can be run better than it's being run right now. I believe there are a lot of issues inside that school, and it needs to be. We really need to take a look at that school and what's going on inside of it. I mean, like I said, I went there and loved the school. Okay, things need to change there. I mean, as far as a parent, when it dropped to level 3 school, we were supposed to be notified as parents of kids in that school, and we never were. We should not be hearing it from other places. It was the school committee, it was the superintendent. They were the ones supposed to notify the parents of what was going on inside that school. And we weren't. It was held illegally from us. And that really should have been told to us. Not hearing it from teachers in Canton, not hearing it from other places. We should have heard it from our principal, from our school committee, from our superintendent, what really is going on inside the schools. You know, as a parent, I'm involved. I try to talk to my teachers, my kids' teachers, what's going on, and see. But I believe a lot of stuff being held from the teachers, from the parents. Thank you.
Does anybody have a rebuttal on that? Okay.
So first off, we do not have an exodus of teachers from the school system. Our teachers are well paid. They're paid on the par with towns in Easton, Canton, Sharon, and in fact they're paid more here than they are in Sharon. Last year there were 20 teachers that were not, whose contracts were non-renewed. And this is a trend that is across the state as the assessments and requirements become tougher and tougher for teachers. And finally, the West School is doing very good.
Yeah, there's only 30 seconds on the button.
Okay.
There's $780,000 that's given back to the school. That $780,000 could have been used to either get other teachers or whatever the case is. It's still up to the school committee and Dr. Rizzi to take care of these problems and to know where the problems exist and to do something about them. They cannot get left off the hook because of this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Randy?
Considering I'm not on the school committee, just question, is there a system in place to know why teachers leave to go to another school?
Yes.
So you have things from them and why they're going and what the reasoning behind it is? And if you saw that it was going on in more than one in a specific school, you guys would look into that specific school.
Right, that's not what's going on.
Okay, because I mean, I've heard from different things that there are a lot of teachers leaving West School putting in their resignations because of what's going on inside the school. So I would be interested to know why, even as a taxpayer, everything's going on, and what's going on.
Anybody want to handle that? Get 30 seconds.
Let me just say one thing also, Mark. The principal that was hired at the West School was the National Principal of the Year when received an award from the Teachers Association in Washington, D.C. She's a very qualified principal. She knows her organization. Some of the people that left the West School and some of the people that left the school system per se, some were transfers because husbands had found another job, B, some retirements, and C, contract non-renewals. So it's not all just the West School. And anybody who wants to say it's just the West School is wrong.
Okay. Next question goes to Deb first. What can be done to direct students earlier in their academic careers to a more positive future so they can avoid the minimum wage job run?
I think that students from the very beginning need to be exposed to a wide variety of subjects and areas where they can explore their interests. To that end, we have started an after-school enrichment program where kids can explore the arts, music, rocketry, build race cars, and you know there may be something in there that that appeal to the students. This year we have 4 modules at all the schools. Next year we'll have 8. So at the very beginning, we're looking to increase the offerings, increase a wide range of enrichments that allow the students to explore their interests. The same thing at the high school. We're hoping to put in place a 8-period day. We've increased the number of electives so that students can explore a wide variety of different subject matters.
Okay. What can be done to direct students earlier in their academic careers to a more positive future so they can avoid the minimum wage job run?
We're going to let our kids know that their goals can be as high as they want it to be. We have to give them the proper resources so that they can have what they need and deserve to succeed with a stable curriculum and just, you know, push those kids. They want to learn, they're going to learn, and they're going to try to impress as further than any adult would do. The sky's the limit with our children.
Great, that was good. First of all, I noticed when I went to college that those people in college who knew what their goals were always basically got where they wanted to go. Now, I think there's 4 things that need to be taught to our children, which are 4 basic things. They need to be good or strong in communications. There should be a trust factor. Children should be taught that they have to trust and they have to work that trust with other people. There should be a listening factor. Children have to be trained on how to listen. Children are basically all within themselves and they want to go and speak their minds, etc. And the last thing is they have to get along with others. Now, we know that we have policies in school that we try to get people to get along with other people, and we work that. Now, communication is probably one of the toughest things for a younger child because they're not really in the communication mode. Basically, what they want to do is go out and play with their kids, and they're actually learning how to communicate with the teachers, etc., and playing with the students outside or the children outside. But the point is that communication is our way of getting our ideas across to them and their way of getting their ideas across to us. We're going to use communication throughout our whole life, and that's probably the most difficult thing that we can ever do. Okay? And listening. Listening is a strong thing. We have to really listen if we want to find out what the other person has to say. And I believe the teachers are very, very good in that respect. Thank you.
Back to Randy.
I believe a lot of it starts with maybe trying to get some of the parents involved with this, because you know what, the big teacher, you know, has to try to get the kids to learn that they can, you know, succeed. Goes to the parent, trying to get the parents involved too, to show that that they can succeed as well. Maybe bring in professionals also, professional days, you know, talk to kids, try to bring in lawyers, doctors, you know, contractors, to show people that they can succeed, find local people that have made it, big in the town. I know there's a bunch of people that have become doctors out of, from this town that went through the school system. Bring them in, show them, to the teachers, I went here, I went through the schools, and make these kids realize they can, achieve anything. Don't hold back. Try to find local area businesses, set up internships with kids in high school, junior high, things along those lines, get these kids, to aspire to be something other than just, working at a, regular job. I mean, granted, everyone has regular jobs. I worked at them. We all did, try to get the kids working younger. Thank you.
George?
Very interesting question, Mark. We're very fortunate living in Stoughton. We have a bunch of dedicated teachers that work very hard for our kids. My kids went to the school system. My grandchildren go to the school system, and they are getting a good education. But one of the things that's afforded us also to help avoid some of these minimum wage positions is assuming that the kids that are not interested in going on to a college endeavor, they have Southeast Regional to go into where they can learn a lot about some of the various trades. We are eligible for that school, and we do have a number of students that go there. The schools offer a great variety of elective courses. Our kids graduate at a very high rate. We're graduating almost 90% of the kids that of our senior class went into college, whether it be community or four-year colleges. We had, I think, 3 that went into the military and 7 went into the workforce. That's a very good rate of retention. Some of the colleges that the kids went to are some of the main colleges in the country. They're not all in Podunk, Idaho, but there's some very good schools, WPI, Rhode Island, et cetera, UConn, Quinnipiac, all good schools, even some of the state schools here. So our kids have the benefit of A, dedicated teachers working with them, and B, an opportunity to utilize Southeast Regional if they're not so inclined to go on to college.
Thank you. Anybody have a rebuttal? Randy?
I just want to thank George. I went to Quinnipiac. I just want to thank you. No, you didn't shout out to the school.
Okay. It's interesting. One of the things I think is inspiring when you walk into school is the academic hall of the achievement, all of academic achievement that's in there. They want to get inspired. It's a great way to do it. Okay, this is heads to Katie first. And actually, we've talked about this before, but we'll bring it up again because it was in a question here. With budgets so tight, why did the superintendent of schools and the school committee turn back $700,000 plus the special education funds? Is there a more effective way to plan so that more money can be given to mainstream students?
I would say this absolutely has to be a more effective way to plan. You don't give away $750 million when you have a school that went to a level 3, and that it used to be #1 in Massachusetts, I believe. We have a lot of areas that need help, and the school system, we could have used that money for settling the teacher's contract. We could have used that money elsewhere. For that to go back, I believe, is just a shame.
When she returned the $780,000, my personal opinion is she made a mistake. Somehow or other, the money got away from her. Somebody wasn't doing their job, didn't inform her that for some reason there was $780,000 that could be used. The one thing I didn't like was, and I went to the school committee meeting and I heard it, is that the chairperson of the school committee said that that money could not be used for other things. That is not true. Again, I am a town meeting member. When I vote on the school committee budget, I vote bottom line. That means they have the ability to use that money any way they want inside that room. $780,000 for some reason was overlooked. A mistake was made. Now, that mistake shouldn't have been made. And unfortunately, who pays for the mistakes? The children. Thank you.
My understanding of the money, from what I've been told. It is actually was part of the contingency plan that if a child in this town had to go to a special needs school or something along those lines, that's where that money is earmarked to go. And it has to be left there in case something like that happens. That was, from my understanding, what I've been told. If that's why it was given back. If it can be shifted, again, I'm not there to, if it can be shifted near the end and switched, that I don't know. But I would, under the understanding that that's why it was given back to the town, because it was not used in those areas. And I don't know if it can be switched. That part, you know what? I don't know how they set up their budgets yet. Hopefully when I win, hopefully I win, I'll be on there so that way I can see exactly how it's done at all times and to see if what I've been told is the truth.
Thank you. Years ago, when I was on the Finance Committee, one of the things that we always looked at was what monies were returned by the various town departments. And somewhere along the line, being on the Subcommittee for Education during that period of time, we always wondered why the schools didn't return any money. So now we turn around and we gave back money that was allocated for a category that we did not use. Being fair, upright, honest about it, we returned the money instead of burying it somewhere in another department or another category in the budget. My opinion, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. We did it this time. If you want, and whatever the voters want, we'll use the money, every penny that we get, and we won't return anything. And that's not really the attitude you want to have. You want to be upfront about it. We didn't use the $780,000. Some of it was earmarked for the special ed area. We did not have the out-of-town placements that we had, and we returned the money. So blame us like you are, and we'll try not to do this again. Thank you.
Last year, there was a lot of pushback, both from the Finance Committee, Subcommittee on Education, as well as at town meeting. The question was, if we were using our contingencies to pay our budget. We have a very high contingency for our out-of-district placements for special education. There was at least a couple of years in which we had 2 out-of-district placements of $250,000 each. Now, if we didn't have a contingency for that, and we had a family move into town mid-year, we would have been scrambling to find that money. I don't see how you can morally ask for contingencies and call them contingencies and not give it back. Moreover, this year on the municipal side, they were, due to some unforeseen budget issues, there was almost that same amount of money that was needed by the municipal side. And now the town as a whole has that money. And to me, this is fiscally responsible.
You're going to have a rebuttal on that? Joe?
Right now in the budget for the high school, there's $3.6 million for repairs. Now I remember that there was a bunch of people having tours and they were showing how the high school leaked. Now I know if my roof leaked, I'd be repairing it. And they had $3.6 million for repairs on the school. Why wasn't that repaired? At the town meeting, I even asked Dr. Rizzi, I said, Dr. Rizzi, I don't see any articles in the article book that say that you want the roof repaired. And what she said to me was, oh, I wish the roof didn't leak. Thank you.
Yeah, well then, go ahead.
So first off, as far as repairs on the high school go, the school committee voted several years ago that we would repair both the high school and the south school for life safety repairs only. We don't want to be throwing good money after bad. The money that was returned last year could not have been used to settle the contract. It can only have been used for things. And as I said earlier, I don't know how you can morally call it a contingency and then spend it on other things.
Randy?
All right. If the money is just supposed to be used for that, and you're saying things, the question I would have is what things you say there are. And I understand that this isn't only about that $780,000. If they have a budget now to fix the roof, that comes from a different section of the budget, not where this money goes. If this money can't be shifted, if it can be shifted, then it should have been done that way. So that way, yeah, it isn't leaking, or we have, you know, better renovations or things along those lines. But what things are things?
Joe, you want to speak? Joe has the mic, and Kate.
When I took a tour of the library, of the high school, they had library books in one of the rooms, and that was also leaking. Now, you need to repair, I don't care what decision they made, you still need to repair the structure. When it comes to water, you need to repair the structure. You can't allow water to continually come into the structure. It's going to do more damage than it would. As a matter of fact, the principal of the high school, the roof was leaking in his office. And I'm standing there saying, wait a minute, if I'm a house, I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay. Kate?
If the 780 was returned and it was supposed to be for special education, then, but that went from Gibbons, a level 2 to a level 3. Obviously, there was need for that money in that area, which should have been spent.
Anybody else?
Yeah. So the high school is being repaired, but it needs, the roof alone is a estimate of $7 million to repair the roof. So what we have a situation is the roof is being patched. As we have leaks, they are being repaired. The bottom line is that we simply need a new high school.
Okay. I think we'll go to the next question. And this one is for Joe. Should the Stoughton School Department invest in iPads for all students to replace textbooks?
I think iPads is one of the newest things. Even my wife has an iPad these days. I would even like an iPad, because an iPad goes with you. I can sit on the chair, I can watch TV, I can go on the internet. iPads are a great thing, and I think that's where that's a technical thing that everybody in the high school should have. Everybody that can possibly use them should have. I know that they're bringing those into the other high schools. And apparently it's something that's extremely necessary because it allows you to be able to converse with the teacher. It also allows the parent to be able to converse with the teacher. Thank you.
I'll go right to you, Randy's next.
So that's the point.
Did you mess up?
Yeah, it's only a minute.
You want to go down 30 seconds?
Next time he has
I can talk for 30 seconds.
Walk away, maybe 30 seconds bathroom break?
Go ahead, Randy.
I do believe that either an iPad or a Surface or some sort of tablet the kids should have in the schools. To keep photocopying paper after paper after paper after paper is getting a little bit ridiculous for the teacher staff to do. If they can just download the books into a service or a tablet for the kid, it'd be so much easier, and the kids wouldn't be worried about all the papers. The teachers wouldn't have to run and make more copies of the textbook that they have and try to pass out to everyone. I mean, I know when I went here, everyone got textbooks. Now no one has textbooks. There's no one textbooks to give out. You know, it makes more sense, be able to take that iPad or that service and just be able to use that instead, so the kids can download every book on it. They have everything there. We wouldn't have a problem with it anymore. Good.
I happen to like iPads, the idea of there are a couple of elements that we have to look at. A, how are they paid for? Are the teachers, are the students going to be required to buy their own? It's a question. Secondly, is the school department going to issue the iPads? Those are questions that have to be asked, because we do have certain people in the town that at times cannot afford the expense of an iPad. And also, then you have to look at how much money is going to be spent on licensing, because these manufacturers or these textbook publishers are not just giving their stuff away. You have to do something about purchasing their data or their textbooks, whether it's on the iPad or not. So there are a number of questions that have to be answered before you can arbitrarily say, yes, I'm in favor of an iPad, or no, I don't want an iPad. The key is, how is it going to be paid for? Who's responsible for it? Are they going home with the students? What's going to happen if it gets stolen or lost? And you know these are the things that do happen to disappear somehow. And we have to be able to come up with a solution that's equitable for the entire school population. Not just a few, the entire school population. Thank you.
I think it's a complicated question. The iPad is a tool like any other tool, and there are some things that it does right, some things that it simply can't replace. And there are a number of logistical questions that need to be answered. Definitely, who is going to pay for them? Are the iPads going to be owned by the students or by the school system? What happens when the dog ate the iPad? So the school system for a couple of years has been looking into this. There is a task force of parents, teachers, students, looking to see what the alternatives are, looking to see what other districts have done. And we certainly are probably going to be headed in that direction sooner rather than later, but there are a number of logistical questions that that we need to have answered. Thank you.
When I went to school, we learned through books, and I love books, but unfortunately, iPads are the up-and-coming thing, and I would definitely have to say we have to see how much it's going to cost, because we do have, we have to make sure that every single child is able to have an iPad so that we could go forward with that.
Do you have a follow-up, Randy?
No, Joe.
Joe did it first.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, right.
Sorry. Now, excuse me, in response to Joe, $780,000 would certainly pay for the iPads. Okay, now coming to other questions, if my dog ate an iPad, then fine, I deserve to pay for it. I think there are a lot of questions that can be easily answered. Okay, and when it comes to the parents, when it comes to the school, if the school pays for the iPads up front, okay, and if the parent doesn't return the iPad back to the school, and if it doesn't work, then they should pay for it. These are all kinds of issues that will basically be answered as time goes on, but I still believe the iPad is certainly the most innovative thing, especially when you have straight contact right back to the teacher, and you can actually, the parents can actually communicate with the teacher, where today, for some reason, they don't do very well in doing that. Thank you.
Joe, you did start that off, right?
Yes.
Yeah, shortchanged.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And Randy wants to. I thought it was imagining things here.
I know a lot of you guys are saying iPad. I'll be honest with you, look at the Surface, it's already Microsoft accessible. You can print off it a lot easier, and it's better than the iPad for an educational purpose. As far as paying for it, you know, you have to look at, like Joyce said, you do have to look at that single parent at home that's working real hard and struggling, that might not be able to afford if their kid does break it or it does get stolen. You do have to look at, on that end, maybe look at, maybe the parents look at purchasing insurance for each, tablet or whatever is got, so that way it's covered on those ends. But those things you do have to look into. It's not just, oh, my kid lost it, I gotta come up with $600. A lot of people can't do that. So you do have to look at everyone's economic situation, not just, oh, my kid did it, oh, you're gonna charge me. No, you gotta look at it.
Anybody else? Okay. Next question, Randy, this goes to you first.
again.
Do you support the new high school? If so, how do you think it should be paid for? And will you actively advocate for it?
I went to the school. I know it needs a massive renovation. It needs so much work. Would I love to see a new high school built? Absolutely, I'd love it. But it has to also be done feasible with the town. And as long as we can afford it, absolutely. If it meant, you know what, adding on another huge wing and renovating the whole thing, then we do that. We have to look at the big picture. When it was built, what, 100 years ago, 20 years ago? It's been a long time. But the same token, well, maybe not that old. So. But when I went there, you know what, the A building was falling apart then. My guess is it's probably still falling apart now. Everything needs to be looked at as far as building a new school. You know, but it definitely has to be done where it's efficient for the town. Because if we try to do an override, it's going to stop people from moving into the town, which will actually hurt Stoughton, not help Stoughton. So we have to look at the whole entire picture and not just go we think, oh, let's just get high school because we want it in high school. We do have, part of the school committee, do have to look at the whole town situation as well, and how it's going to be paid for, how we're going to budget it. If that meant, you know what, we shift the football field and we add on a wing to the high school so we have them all up to date technology and it works out that way and we renovate the rest of the high school, then so be it. We need to take a look at the whole entire situation and not just, oh, I want a new high school, let's just go build it.
George?
I do advocate for a new high school, whether it's rebuilt, repaired, replaced, whatever. We do need a new modern facility. I've had the opportunity to tour the Norwood High School. What a magnificent facility. You take a look at our gymnasium, because I'm involved with sports, as you may know, and I'm in the gym at the high school quite a bit. Imagine turning away people who want to see their children play a basketball game because our gym does not have capacity to hold the number of people that are coming to see a game. Or having a team qualify for state tournament play and not be able to have a home game. That's not right. We need a facility that's equitable for our kids, give them the best opportunity to get an education, and at the same time, give them the facility that they can be proud of. Thank you.
Yeah?
Well, this is the question I have been looking forward to. For 3.5 years, I have led the town's effort towards a new high school. The high school is now on warning status for its accreditation. We absolutely cannot afford that as a town and as a school system. I chaired the feasibility committee that developed a presentation at town meeting that resulted in an almost unanimous vote for an appropriation of $1 million for a feasibility study. I organized tours of local high schools, new projects at Norwood High School and Whitman-Hanson, of the school committee, Board of Selectmen, FinCom, news media, and other members. I reached out to our state delegation and invited them, as well as members of the MSBA, to tour the high school so that they could see how badly in need of replacement. Now, what will happen in this next coming year is that we will undergo a feasibility study. And then we as a town can look at what the options are for renovating or replacing the high school. And I personally support a debt exclusion rather than an override. A debt exclusion lasts for a limited period of time, only until the high school is paid off, rather than be a permanent tax increase, which is what an override is.
Katie?
I believe that we definitely need something done in the high school. Our children deserve a better building to be in. I have gone through Southeastern, and they did a fabulous job at doing theirs, renovating theirs. I would have to see what the cost is in order to advocate for any tax increase.
Joe?
Yes, I believe in a new high school. I not sure that we'll get a 2.5 exclusion to pass this town. We also need a new South School, a library, a police and fire station. We need actually in this town a 20-year plan, and we don't have it. Harvard keeps refurbishing their buildings I'm not sure, 5, 10 years, whatever the case is. We need to do something like that in Stoughton. Without a plan, we're going nowhere. And without a plan, we don't know how much money this is going to cost us. Okay? Yes, like I said, we do need a new high school. But we need other buildings besides that. All right? Without a 20-year plan, we're not going to get any of this done. And if we don't start a 20-year plan now, when are we going to start? Thank you.
Anybody have a rebuttal on that? Okay. Well, that's the end of our questions from us, from our committees. Now we have some questions from the audience. The first one goes to George. Currently, school success is measured by MCAS scores. How do you explain the lack of improvement in this area under Dr. Rizzi's leadership? If you are not a current school committee member, what would you do to work to improve testing scores? If you are, why have they not improved?
Oh, very interesting question. Thank you. It's always nice to blame Dr. Rizzi. Everybody throws a name out left and right. She's responsible. She's a superintendent. People work for her. MCAS results are not always the answer. There are kids that take MCAS results that do not do well on standardized tests. We all know that. And that does affect our overall position. The second thing, or portion of this, is that we do well on many of the cases of the MCAS exams. So we have kids that are in the highest level, and we also have kids that are in the lowest level. The thing to do is offer, which we are doing now, is the extracurricular activity that gives the kids an opportunity to take some extra, or get extra help in improving their MCAS scores. The way things are going right now, we may not even have to worry about MCAS results very soon, because they're coming out with a new test that may replace the MCAS, which I'm not very happy about hearing, but at the same time, it's a universal test that's going to be the same thing throughout the country. So at this point, there is a lot of work that still has to be done. We are offering the kids the extra help, and hopefully our test results, where they are not that good, do improve.
Deb?
We have a lot of programs in place to address this. The afternoon enrichment programs that I mentioned earlier are also complemented by remediation programs. Our scores have been flat, although our growth, which is one of the most important things that you look for, our growth is very, very good. Now, the poverty rate in the last 5 years in our town has doubled in the schools from 15 to 30%. And if there's any factor which is in fact very difficult to counter as far as MCAS scores goes, it's poverty. And that is why, in fact, in our budget we have put more money towards remediation. But given all that, I do agree with Mr. Delinsky that the MCAS is definitely an imperfect test. And there are many, many good things going on in the schools, and much that we have to be proud of.
Kate? Currently, school success is measured by MCAS scores. How do you explain the lack of improvement in this area under Dr. Rizzi's leadership? If you are not a current school committee member, how would you work to improve testing scores?
Communication with the teachers. I'd like to see what they would need to increase these MCAS scores. I believe that in regards to Dr. Rizzi, there's just lack of transparency. I believe we just need to have respect for one another, and there needs to be more communication so we can have a positive environment.
First of all, every year, again, I'm I'm a what? I have the same moment again. I'm a town meeting member. Dr. Izzy every year goes up anywhere from 2 to 4% in her budget. Okay? She needs the foresight in order to use that money properly to get these schools whether she has to hire new teachers or whatever. The school committee must be innovative to help her. The buck stops with Dr. Izzy. There is no other way of doing it. And this should be a goal for Dr. Izzy. It's her job to take care of the children of Stoughton and to teach them in the way that they need to be taught so that they can do these tests properly. And yes, I understand. I was one of those kids that had problems in school. I hated tests, okay? But nonetheless, I still had to study for it, and I still had to do it. And I went to a religious school, and let me tell you something. They pushed you. Thank you.
Randy?
Well, I mean, I believe we should have programs in every school, either before or after school, or even during class time, if you know a child is struggling. You should be able to pull them out, help them with the testing, either before or after. Maybe give those kids extra time if you realize those kids are struggling in certain areas. It really needs to be taken a look at, altogether what it can be done. I mean, as far as Dr. Izzy, everyone says the buck stops there, buck stops there. Yeah, right, it does stop Dr. Izzy, but you know what? Us as a school committee are in charge of her. She's not in charge of the school committee. So if we don't like what she's doing, we tell her, we don't like what you're doing, and get her to change. It's very simple. She works for us, we hire her, we extend her, or don't extend her. It's very simple. We give her a raise or don't. So everyone wants to blame Dr. Izzy. Well, you know what? If we're the ones supposed to be running Dr. Izzy, who are we really supposed to blame?
Anybody have a rebuttal on that?
I just wanted to add that there is some data and a curious trend, and that is that the longer a student spends in the Stoughton school system, the better they actually do. So in areas where we're addressing some of the needs regarding scores, that money is going towards schools, towards transient students, towards students who have entered the school system midway through their schooling. And I think it says a lot that the longer a child is in the school system, the better they do.
There are a number of alternatives, like you said earlier, and I hate to have somebody turn around and say that our teachers are teaching to the test. I think they've heard this long enough, and it's not really true. I believe our teachers are doing a great job. They're teaching the kids the way they're supposed to. They're following the curriculum the way they're taught, and they're supposed to. And at the same time, the education is a person basically responsible for education. It starts in the home. And we've got to teach the kids starting at home before they get into the schools, and I think you'll find there's a greater improvement that way.
And also, I'd like to, just one more thing. You talked about the poverty level going up in the town. So does that mean we just think, well, people aren't as smart? Because you know what, they're going through our school system, so it does make a difference how much money you have to your intelligence on the passing test. You know what, they're at the top of our schools. It should make a difference how much money they have at home, whether or not they can do good on the test.
Okay, next question. You want to make a comment? Good. See you.
First of all, the teachers have to diagnose the problems with the children. Okay, once they're diagnosed, then we have to give them, as it was stated here already, special help. Either that, or we keep the kids until they're 20 years old. And we can't do that. We understand. But once we diagnose the children, there has to be programs set in place in order to make these children special help, one-on-one, those things are needed, that's what has to take place. And we have to do this, and we have to do this quickly. Because we don't have 20 years to be able to train this child. Thank you.
Okay, this is a question that I'm only going to do once because it's hard for me to read it. It's a long one and it's kind of squiggly. All right, so Gabrielle, this is going to you first. One of the major responsibilities of the school committee is to oversee the superintendent. And one way to do this is through the goal setting and evaluation process. Many people in the community feel that Dr. Rizzi does not adequately communicate with them. How would you use the evaluation process to help Dr. Rizzi improve her ability to effectively communicate with parents and other community members?
So, first off, the job of the superintendent is actually a macro job. She absolutely needs to get out into the community more, but her job is to develop a vision for the overall community and to communicate that vision. And that's something that I think she does particularly well. And I love what she does at town meeting, which is to communicate her vision and to communicate how that translates with regard to budgeting. Certainly, from the very beginning, I have gone out to PTO meetings with her, but really her job is to communicate an overall vision. The job of meeting with parents one-to-one goes to the teachers, the principals, the curriculum directors, and other administrators. She has a very large job, and a big part of that job is actually budgeting.
Katie?
I believe that we need a fresh start. Accountability is sorely lacking. I believe that the teachers need to be respected. I believe that the parents need to be respected. I think that common sense needs to be brought in here. Obviously, there's an issue, and I believe that communication, we need to get out there, we need to speak, we need to just communicate with one another. There's a problem in the school system. It does start with the school committee and the superintendent, and that needs to be fixed.
Joe?
First of all, again, communication is the most difficult thing to do, okay? Dr. Rizzi, as far as I'm concerned, her primary responsibility is to communicate to the teachers and to the parents. She has to meet with the parents, but she also has to satisfy the parents. That's the most difficult thing, is satisfying the parents, okay? I'm hearing the parents not being listened to, and that's another problem. I'm also hearing that parents, and it's not necessarily Dr. Rizzi, but part of the staff, parents are also being crying. That doesn't make sense. We must learn to communicate, and that's what I intend to bring. I intend to bring what I would call dignity to the individual. It's in our Constitution. And it says that we as individual people have the right to be respected. Our Constitution is the only one that says the right of the individual. There is no other Constitution throughout the whole world that says the right of the individual. And the individual is extremely important. Now, the parents, and I'm talking about the angels of mercy, the people who pay the taxes, they're the ones to be satisfied. Absolutely nobody else. It's Dr. Rizzi's job to satisfy them. It's the school committee's job to satisfy them. It's Mr. Ford's job to satisfy them. And what I intend to do, if I can, is to satisfy them.
Randy?
Getting back to the question, was directly about Dr. Rizzi. The school committee, like I said before, runs Dr. Rizzi. Rizzi does not run the school committee. The perception of it around town, you know, is Rizzi runs the school committee and they do whatever she has, whatever she says. As far as, you know, goal setting, you know what, and communication. Where was the communication when given school dropped to level 3 and the parent of that school was supposed to be notified? That's on her. She was supposed to do it. Us as the school committee, we'll give her goals to do. If she doesn't reach those goals, hit those goals, she better have an explanation of why. If not, guess what? There's the door. You can go to another place and we'll find another superintendent. Because if you're not going to listen to what the school committee has to say, then guess what? You don't need to be here because we're the one that runs you. You don't run us. It's very simple.
George?
Thank you. The question basically dealt with the review system. The committee has established assistants to make sure that each member of the committee is given the opportunity to express their points of view regarding the goals that are being established for the superintendent by the superintendent. What's happened in the past is that people just coming into the position are being asked to do a review on somebody they never had an opportunity to work with, became very short-sighted. They couldn't really assess how good or how bad the superintendent actually was. I've had the opportunity to work with the superintendent over the last 3 years, and knowing that some of the goals that we have established for her have been met, some have been exceeded, some of them may have been a little bit on the short side. But at the same time, as a committee, we are all offered the opportunity to put on paper what we perceive as the accomplishments or lack thereof of what was previously established. There are those that feel that everything she does is wrong. I disagree with that. I think the woman has done an excellent job, and at the same time, my dealings with her have been on the positive side, and I'm on the upside also. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We're going to cut it here because we have pretty much run out of time. We've actually gone over. We have about 7 more questions from the audience. I can't ask them right now. So what we're going to do is go over the final thoughts. You all have 60 seconds to close. We're going to start on this end and work our way back to the other end. So Joe, you're on.
School committee's goals of the superintendent should be: 1, improve the given school for level 3. 2, improve the West School ranking at the bottom of the elementary schools. 3, improve special education. 4, improve students' achievement in all Stoughton schools. 5, improve transparency of the administration and fiscal systems. 6, eliminate unscrupulous hiring practices. There is already a procedure in place. Follow it. 7, improve communication with parents and avoid conflicts with teachers. What is my code of conduct? I believe in the Constitution of the United States, which now affords men and women their dignity, respect, and individual freedom. Each group, such as the school committee, has their own rules and regulations, none of which supersedes the Constitution. I need your vote to get elected. If I'm elected, I guarantee I will always be vigilant and committed as to how the school committee conducts its business and supervises the administration. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Joe, Katie?
I would greatly appreciate your vote on April 8th. I will work hard for our children. I will work to settle teachers' contracts so that we can move forward and gain stability in our schools. Doing this will help our children receive a quality education without the interference of political agendas. I want what every parent in this town wants, and want what's best for our children. Thank you.
Deb?
Thank you to everyone who came here and listened and asked questions, and thank you to both the League and the Chamber for organizing this really important forum. I've spent my entire career in science education, and I deeply believe that our children need 21st century skills and 21st century facilities to compete in what is really a global economy. I know that the school committee has taken some heat lately for the teacher's contract, but I believe that we are on the right track, that we are on the same page with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, looking at the long-term health of the town. Finally, the thing that I'm most proud of is having led this community on the road towards a new high school, and I ask for your vote so I can finish my work. Thank you.
George?
I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters, the Stoughton Chamber, and especially Panera for the nice refreshments, and I also want to thank you all for coming. I have served on the Finance Committee, Conservation Commission, Council on Aging, and now the School Committee. I've been very much involved with the youth in town, via the various sports activities, Stoughton being one of them, Stoughton Little League being another. I have been involved for over 40 years. I am looking forward to continuing my service to the town and to the kids in the schools. and hopefully you will consider me for one of your votes on April 8th. Thank you.
Randy?
I'd like to thank everyone that came out today, Lindsay, Chamber, Panera, whoever it was. What I really would like to get across is that, you know what, we control Dr. Izzy as school committee members. She doesn't control us. If you guys want to change in the town, you want to see it go back on an upswing, I'd appreciate your vote. My kids go to school in this town. I've lived in this town my whole entire life. I'm very proud to say that I am a town. You know, I'll be 41 next week. Like I said, I've lived in this town. My son goes to Gibbons. My daughter is in the middle school. She's going to high school next year. I want to see a new high school built. I went to the high school. I want to see the improvements done. I believe everyone in the school committee's voice should be heard. I don't believe we should have reviews where not all school committee members are at. I believe everyone should have a voice. I believe the parents should have a voice. I believe Dr. Rizzi should better learn how to communicate real fast, or she won't have a voice in this town anymore. And it's our job to make sure that, you know what, things get done. And that the school committee does what they're supposed to do, and that superintendent does what she's supposed to do. Gets this town back where it should be. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody in the audience for being here today. And I just want to remind you that this will be on television. Go to StoughtonTV.com or SnyderStoughton.com and find out when the schedule is. Also want to remind everybody that there's a big debate coming up, March 31st, beginning at 6 o'clock at the offices of SMAC in the studio. And that's going to be starting at 6 o'clock at 421 Page Street. And it'll be on live on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. I'm Mark Snyder. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.